Welcome back to Actual Proper Podcast. I'm Reece Farkash. Who are you?
I'm Twila. Amato.
She's Twila Amato. Okay. So
I actually seriously just questioned my identity right then and there.
I mean, we're like 12 episodes in now. I hope everyone knows us by now, but oh well.
I hope.
So if you ever want to ask or submit a question for our advice segment, you can do that. Just reach us on any social media. Pretty easy to find, especially like Instagram, Resell FM, Facebook, the usual. I won't give you my email address because honestly, I feel like that's just a waste of a sentence. But anyway, so this week, some interesting news has been announced. I remember we were psyched for Sonic the Hedgehog. That it was being released. They dropped a trailer. It was filmed partially here on Vancouver Island, like
the highway scene.
Yeah. So the two-lane highway scenes that you would recognize from Final Destination 2 were filmed here.
No way.
North Island. Yeah.
I had
There's
no
actually been
idea.
quite a few films that were filmed here, like the new
Here on
Planet
the island.
in the North Island specifically, like the new Planet of the Apes movie that was at Myra Falls, which is just a little ways down the road. There
No
was
way.
Sonic the Hedgehog, Final Destination 2, The 13th Warrior, and a few others that I don't really remember.
That's crazy.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff. You'd never think. Like, I just think it's like such a beautiful location, and it's got to be way cheaper of a locale to shoot than like Vancouver or, you know,
Right, for sure.
anywhere else,
But
like
I think-
especially in America, because like we don't get a lot of shooting done here, so
Right.
it's
but
gotta
it's
be
also
pretty
very
cheap.
well, it's also very specific too though. Like, I mean, Planet of the Apes, for example, that works well. Like this being the
Oh,
shooting
yeah.
area because of like the nature scenes and things like that. So I feel like it is very, very, very specific because a lot of movies, I mean, are set in like big cities, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's easy to replicate, obviously, in places like Vancouver or I don't know, like Montreal even or something.
But then again, there is so many sci-fi TV shows and movies that are shot outside of Vancouver because they want the weird like British Columbia.
The weird British Columbia vibe.
Yeah, where it's like not as necessarily of a dense unless you go to the old growth forests.
That's fair, yeah.
It's a unique location.
Yeah.
And here on the island we have that but better. So it just makes more sense to
True.
me.
Well, I mean, it's also kind of hard to get here, though.
It is.
It's also very expensive because not only are you lugging obviously like your actors and your your production staff, it's equipment too, and then some obviously a lot of props, and then like costumes, makeup, things like that. It's expensive, I think, and that's probably why there's not as much filming that happens here. I would think.
Speaking of, that actually just reminded me that the new show C, that's going to be out soon, sometime this year.
Alright,
Yeah, Jason Momoa. He's been a guy, also the girl from Travelers, forget her name.
Nesta Cooper.
Yeah, Nesta Cooper, as well as a few other cool up-and-comers.
That was also
filmed-
filmed around Myra Falls, actually.
It was filmed a few places
Right.
here, like even around us, like in town, and like not the locations in town, but just in the islands that are just like a 10-minute ferry ride away, just like
Right, yeah.
across the strait. But yeah, there was quite a few shooting locations. Like that whole show is shot here, I do
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah, and I know that show is also sci-fi, like
Yeah,
futuristic,
it's interesting.
like sci-fi.
Yeah. So like a quick synopsis is like humanity has lost the ability to see, so no one can see. Everyone's blind. They adapted to it, of course, and then twins are born with the ability to see.
Whoa.
Sounds pretty interesting. I'm definitely gonna watch it just for like the recognizing the shooting locations.
Right, yeah.
'cause
That's always really
wasn't-
cool, actually.
Yeah, it wasn't like the whole show was shot here. I believe they were only here for a few weeks, but still very cool.
Yeah. And it's always really cool to kind of see that, like, things and places that you recognize, for sure.
So back to Sonic. Why we brought it up
Mhm.
was just the craziness of what happened. I've never seen a more horrible trailer release in my entire lifetime. Like,
Was it really that bad?
see, I'm
How
on the,
bad was it?
I'm on the like fence where I was actually totally fine with how the character of Sonic looked in the movie. Like I
wasn't.
thought it was kind of cool because like in a lot of cases it like had his fur and like his body moved on his legs differently than like the rest of his body, which made it look like he had
Mm-hmm.
joggers, which totally fit like the sneakers, like everything. I just was like, this is like, honestly, besides the fact that it's a blue hedgehog, would be
Mm-hmm.
like any athleisure teen out there. Like, it just like the vibe was captured.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so they're gonna be after the trailer release. No one liked it apparently, and of course everyone
Yeah.
heard about that. But the director did too, and he's like, "Well, I guess we have to get like my compromise to the fans is we're gonna be changing the character of Sonic for release date, which is I think November, like late this year."
Yikes! It's actually a lot of work and very costly too.
It is. It's not crazy. It's not necessarily crazy though, because you know when trailers are cut and they're made, they only have that piece done with the CGI pretty much, and then
Mm-hmm.
it keeps on being largely worked on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely not the final stage
Right,
that
for
you're going to be
sure.
seeing the movie,
Mm-hmm.
nor is it. And it's some of the only ones that have been worked on so far. So they don't
Mm-hmm.
actually have a huge, I guess, as huge of a workload as people think, but it's still a massive job
It's
because
still a massive.
you
job.
got to hire
Exactly.
designers, then you got to go through all the creative processes,
Yeah.
and then you have to actually do it, which is crazy. But for the most part, they have a lot of the rigging done and stuff. Like, I don't think it's going to be too much of a job, but at the same time, I just feel bad for the employees who have to do it because
Yeah.
you know it's
I
all
mean-
that it's their work that is being
Being bashed
impact.
so publicly.
it is kind of in a sense that I'm trying to communicate is like the new workload that they have to do where
Yeah,
they
for
have to
sure.
take it on
Mhm.
differently, but also you know when we go back to like we work in a creative field where
Mhm.
you know it's kind of the same with us for the people who made the characters. We never had the final say or really a say at all. We just had ideas,
Mhm.
and then other people took those, tweak those, sometimes so much so that we don't even know where we contributed.
Mhm.
And that's, you know, those people in charge of those roles should have known better.
Right.
And but those are the higher ups. Those aren't the lowly employees that I feel bad for.
I guess. I mean, I guess I don't have much to say about it in the sense that I obviously like I'm not an animator and I'm not a visual artist at all, but when I saw it I was just like, "Whoa, that is not Sonic." I don't know what this crazy it just seemed like a really rudimentary kind of like fan art, and that's not to bash fan art because there's so many things, like so many fan art pieces out there that are gorgeous and amazing, but this one was kind of just like, I'm not convinced, and I don't think I would want to watch it for that, for the way Sonic looked. And again, I'm not saying that, like the people, like the designers or the higher ups, did a bad job. It's just that I think it could have been better. And that's totally okay because that's also what art is too, though, right? That's what the creative process is like, is sometimes you are gonna, encounter a lot of flack and you're just gonna have to change things sometimes. And that's okay.
Yeah. Would you have preferred Sonic better instead of like the 3D almost pseudo realistic version? Because they aren't obviously not going for a totally realistic pseudo where it's like half cartoon, half realistic.
Right.
Or would you have preferred like the classic video game style Hedgehog? Just like totally like just the video game character in the movie, like how he looks, instead of what they did where they tried to go half and half.
Right. I think sticking closer to that would be a little better because what it is it's not a complete redesign necessarily of, the classic Sonic, but it's kind of he looks so different. And that's not necessarily like the only classic thing about him really going is the fact that he's a blue hedgehog, and that's really all, and the fact that obviously he's fast. And so, but like if he was a little closer to that, because here in this trailer, he looked so docile because Sonic doesn't look like that. Like he's a little fiercer. Do you know what I mean? He's not cute.
Totally. Yeah.
Like, whereas this Sonic it looked a little too human and also a little too cute. And that's just not Sonic.
Now, do you think that they might have made him a little more cute because their target demo is so young?
Maybe.
I'm not sure a more fierce looking Sonic like we might see, of course,
Or
like
what
the
we're
past
used to, I
years.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily would play so well because like a video game's
Right.
different where you have to have the cognitive skill necessarily to play one of those video games, which means you're not super young. But this movie is definitely for like super young.
Right. I mean, I guess I understand that too. But in that case, then they could have made him maybe a little fluffier, maybe, or like because he looks really skinny and scrawny in the trailer, you know. And I don't know if they were trying to go for cute, maybe, you know, like go a little further than what was done is my thinking. So
Yeah.
I don't know, like it's
A little more close to Detective Pikachu.
something like that, maybe.
But then again, in that movie, like I know we were talking about how trailers aren't the finished product at all, and it's kind of a 50-50 on judging it, but the Charizard in the trailers of Detective Pikachu looks like total garbage. Like they did that's just made it look so bad.
Yeah,
but
I can't say I want to see that
it's-
movie either.
Man, it's just so hard to be someone in charge of creative these days because
It's not even that. It's more
it's
like
hard.
it's the conversion from the completely animated version to a little more realistic. Because for some reason now there's just this whole wave of, you know, making animated things into live action, and I mean that's most noticed in Disney, where, you know, they've been doing a lot of live action, like, you know, Cinderella, and then, you know, not Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast, right? And then now Aladdin coming up, and then Lion King. And so there's just been that kind of like wave, and that's kind of like the same with Detective Pikachu and now Sonic the Hedgehog too. So it's just hard to go from like 2D, like classically animated things to then like CGI versions of that, you know?
Totally.
So I can understand why it wouldn't look as good, or, you know, but still, I don't know, maybe we should just stop with like converting all the classically animated things to like live action, because
Do you know what approach that I love that would never work probably again?
what?
Looney Tunes back in action, baby.
Oh yeah.
That was so good. And also
that was fun.
Space Jam
Space Jam.
in the same jam.
Yeah.
They just didn't even try to go realistic.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, let's just pretend like it's all cool.
Yeah.
And it's just 2D characters looking exactly how they do in
But I guess
the cartoons, interacting with real people.
With real people,
Oh, God, that's the only like I couldn't imagine it working with anything else, though.
Yeah. I guess that's just different, I guess. Yeah, you're right. I don't think it's ever going to work again, but
Maybe I was just super young.
but I bet if you watched it now, it'd be so cringy.
Oh, I don't know. I have so much nostalgia. Those are both such awesome movies.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, no. Those have been my opinion.
So it's emergency preparedness week across Canada. Hopefully you all got the notifications on your phones last Wednesday. Forget what day that was, but
that was Wednesday at 1:55 in the afternoon.
PST for us.
Yeah, yeah.
But the test has been so bad, like for BC. I'm not sure about other provinces because I've never experienced a test alert notification system because they didn't have them when I was like back in Alberta.
It's actually been good.
We never had those. So I don't know if other provinces have it, but in BC we have something where it'll roll out a notification to every smartphone on a network. And it has been so bad, but finally they're getting a hold of it where it's like, oh, not 50. You don't have a 50-50 chance anymore of getting the notification and living. You like pretty much everyone has it now, which is super awesome to see that progress.
Yeah, well, I still think it's kind of, I understand that, you know, more and more people have smartphones now, smart devices, and they're more and more devices are obviously like connected to the LTE or 4G network and things like that, and that's easy, but it's still a little difficult, especially in smaller towns, smaller areas, like where we live, for example, where it's not quite rural, but it's rural enough that phone coverage here kicks you off the regular network and puts you on an extended coverage network, where what that means is basically your phone doesn't recognize any cell towers in your area, but like some kind of like repeater or something. I don't know how it works exactly.
I believe that's similar to roaming, right? When they use just other companies' towers.
Right, something like that. And so it's kind of difficult because what happened was, so my phone that normally would actually be receiving these, alerts and things like that, because I've been I've been to Ontario, I've been to, Quebec, and I would get these messages. But like now, the most recent one, I didn't, because that, that whole week, Rogers kicked me off like the regular network coverage, and I was on the Rogers extended network.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that affected it or not, but like everybody else in the station got the alert and I didn't. And I was like, well, if I wasn't anywhere near these people or near the radio, I wouldn't have heard it and I probably would have died. And I think that's one of the things that definitely needs to be resolved for sure. Either that or like, I don't know, maybe let's just not have not Rogers, but like let's just not have extended coverage or whatever. Either way, there's something that like needs to be done about that. Or just maybe, I guess, not just specifically targeting like a 4G network.
Going into advice now, what was the topic that we brought for this week?
So basically, college advice. This person is asking if they should or shouldn't move away for university or college.
So we both went to college that's not in our areas.
Mm-hmm.
So we both have experience in this, which is cool. Mine was a little different because I had a job for like a year or so, and then went to school in the place that I already lived. I didn't exactly move away for school. Like,
right.
I knew I was going to go to school and probably in Edmonton, but I already was working there first. Like that was the main priority when I moved there. And you knew you were to school. Yeah,
you knew you were going to leave your hometown anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was going to go to college eventually.
Right.
Like maybe after a few years. Once I figured out what I wanted to do. Because at that point, like the school I went to didn't have a huge, window into everything that was going on in life. Of course, because I went to a really small school in the middle of nowhere. It was very small, our viewpoint on what actually went on in the world, but also like in like everyday industry and stuff like that. So it was very difficult to find out what to do, So took a couple years, lived in the city, eventually figured out what I wanted to do. Now, of course, in radio broadcasting, and I like to think it all worked out for me, but I definitely couldn't have done anything where I lived. There was no other choice than to move away, and I could have gone to a very much smaller college nearby, but I just felt like if I needed to get a good education, but also, just know what the world is like, I would have to go to a much bigger center.
So in many words, Reece is just saying that it depends on your situation.
Yeah, everyone has a different one.
For sure. It all depends on your situation. And honestly, what you are capable of financially, academically, but also I think what you're willing to give up for it. Because moving away is not easy, but neither is staying where you are. Neither of those choices are easy, especially if, you're coming straight out of high school. Which is why, and I wanted to actually point it out that it's actually really good that you took that gap year or gap years, between high school and going to college, because a lot of kids go to post-secondary institutions without knowing what it is that they want to do. Or sometimes they have an idea, but that can change, especially when you're so young.
Exactly.
I mean, for some people, they're fortunate enough to be like, you know what, this is what I want, and there's this strong conviction, and they carry it through, and they're fulfilled in that. And there are some people like that, and that's great if you're that kind of person. But sometimes you're a little more indecisive, like me. I moved away right after high school. Moved all the way across the country to go to university without really knowing what I wanted to do. I had a vague idea that I wanted to be a teacher. So I was like, okay, well, I'll be an English lit teacher then, and then, take linguistics along with that. But as I was going through my undergrad degree, I kept changing my majors around until I finally settled on, ancient and modern Greek history. And so it has nothing to do at all with news. And I mean, of course, I ended up going back home and going to, you know, J school and then actually becoming a reporter. So it's been quite a journey, like academically. But that's what I mean too, is like if you're willing to go that length, because I moved across the country for university and I was alone for that time and I had to support myself, And so if you're able to do that, or if you're willing to do that, like sacrifice the comforts of home in order to grow, obviously, like in your studies, but also emotionally and mentally, then I think it's a good idea for you. But if you're doing it to run away, I don't think that's such a good idea, because then after a while, it's just a lot of stress. Moving away is a lot of stress, and it's gonna catch up to you, I think, if that's your reason for it. But again, it depends, because sometimes, like Reece, there's just no choice but to move away. If you wanted to grow, then there's that. But if you're able to grow where you are, like if you can bloom where you're planted, and that's where you need to be, I think you should stay there.
It's also a huge advantage, like going through school, like we
And
all know,
staying home.
being able to stay home while in school is just a huge advantage. Not having to worry about paying bills, or like where you're gonna be staying, groceries, that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Being able to stay at home and like even have like you have chores around the house, but you're not taking care of yourself while going to school, which is, it's just that much off of your plate, and it's such a huge advantage to be able to do that. Like, you see all of like your classmates being able to stay home, and they don't have nearly as much to worry about necessarily than someone who's moved away, and they're learning so much, not only about themselves but also about the world when you move away, and they're going through school at the same time, which is like sometimes it can be a bonus, because it kind of gets you in the rhythm of, okay, I have to take care of myself now, so I have to do well.
Right.
But at the same time, like, you incur way more debt. It's more taxing on you.
Exactly.
Like, it's just so much more.
Yeah.
That being able to stay at home and go to the school that you wanted to is a huge advantage, but also just learning to be on your own is just such a huge asset in any kind of world you live in, because you're not going to be able to rely on everyone in your life all the time, and you're going to have to be alone, and you got to like almost get used to that.
That sounds very sad. You're going to have to be alone.
Oh yeah, big time.
But I know.
You're going to have to be alone, and you're going to have to get used to it, because if it's something that it's really hard to deal with, like, it's going to be happening, and it's way easier to learn that when you're young and more flexible than you are when you're set in your ways and you're older. As well as, if it is, of course, like, if you have a mental illness and it's just harder to be alone and to take care of yourself, that is definitely a time where you should not necessarily think about pushing yourself the extra mile and being alone while in school, because it's so taxing.
It is. It's
just
funny.
Stay home, go to a college, whatever is easiest for you.
It's funny that you bring up, like finances and even like, mental health and things like that, because those are all very real. I think what I want to say is that apply to as many schools as you possibly can, both in your hometown or home province or home area, and then away, and see which school you think fits best and which city fits best. Because I could have very well stayed home, honestly, because then I wouldn't have incurred this much student loan. And do I regret that? Sometimes I do, because, whenever my paycheck comes in and then like, more than half of it goes to student loans. Yeah, I kind of regret it. But at the same time, I don't, because I learned so much, about myself, about taking care of myself, being wise about my money and things like that. There's so much that you can learn for sure. But at the same time, I think it would have been easier as well, like mentally, had I stayed, like, had I stayed home. And just like emotionally for sure. But again, I wouldn't have grown the way I did if I stayed home. So it's very much like a lot of it comes down to knowing, I think, what you want. But not even knowing what you want, but just, I guess, learning more about yourself and saying, okay, you know, where do I want myself to be at, you know, in a few years' time. And I think just being a little wise about that, or being more aware of that, I think is your key to really having that decision of like, should I stay home or not? You know?
Oh yeah, I think we covered it off pretty well there. Kind of just boils down to, you know, do what you think would be best for you to set you up for the future. But anyway, moving on. Something I did want to mention, though, is when I brought up, you know, not really knowing what I wanted to do after I finished high school. Such a huge resource was actually schools' open houses. So these are days where all the programs have, you know, usually their department heads or a few teachers. It's for like, you know, families or just, you know, you're interested. You want to know more about what schools have to offer and jobs out there, as well as programs. These open houses are, not only are they so much fun, but you will find choices to narrow it down from there. Like it's so helpful to young students out there when they say, I don't know what to do or I don't know what to commit to. Those open houses are absolutely imperative to be going to. And they're a lot of fun too. You will get hooked on college when you go. I guarantee you'll see how just like how great it's so much work, but it's so much fun.
Yeah, post-secondary is
college
really
life.
fun. Yeah. I will say, though, it's not for everybody, but there is a kind of education for everybody out there. You know, you just have to find what kind of education that is, whether that be university, where it's research-based and it's obviously a track to professorship, or like, you know, being a teacher and things like that. If that's your thing and, you know, you fit into that world, then go that route, right? But if it's not, if it's more like a trade school kind of deal for you,
or like a technical school,
or a technical school, that's totally fine. And I mean, I've done both, and they've both been like really good experiences for me. And I honestly, I wouldn't trade either of them for anything really. And so it really also boils down to that.
Well, we gotta get into recommendations for this week. What is the recommendation you're bringing to the table? Okay, well, Twila is bringing up her list here. I'm gonna go into mine, which is actually, I've only ever seen it once, but you know, I was loving it, and I don't know if it was, you know, circumstances, like if I was just, you know, feeling really good at the time, but I love the movie Valerian so much, but no one ever thinks about it or like has it very in a great opinion. But man, oh man, do I love that movie. I just think the vibe is there. It was just so good for me. Also, that Kesha song "Praying" came out at the same time, and it like resonated with the movie somehow. Like, I have no idea, but like I love them so much.
I saw the trailer for it, and I think what's her name? Cara Delevingne, isn't it?
Is her
and
name.
I mean, I can't say I am very fond of her acting, and I think that may have factored into as to why I didn't really want to see the movie.
See, I'm not a huge fan of her or the male lead who was Green Goblin in like The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So I'm really not a fan of those two actors, but man,
was it a good experience?
Yeah, I was down with them in the movie. Like, come on, let's get it.
I remember my recommendation now, which is actually a product. Is that allowed? Are we allowed to do this?
Sure.
Okay, so it's actually my water bottle. I've only no copying, you copycat. I absolutely love this water bottle. I've only gotten when did I get this? Like maybe 3 weeks ago now or so, and it is absolutely amazing. It's the Camelback Eddie water bottle. It's it has a straw, and basically it just is so leak proof whichever way you go, because like even if you tip it, you know, with the straw up, it won't leak, because you actually you have to bite it to be able to like suck water out of it. So, which is kind of neat and like really nifty, and I really like it. It's also, I've also mostly had water bottles that are like that didn't have straws, so you actually have to tip them up for you to drink. And
Ugh.
as a clumsy person, I would always just like spill water all over myself or all over my desk, my papers, sometimes my laptop. So it's been a journey. So this one I absolutely love. Mine is, I can't remember like what the exact name of the color is, but it's pink. It looks pink.
Pinky, orangey, purpley.
No, it's just
If you mix
pink.
all those in your mind, that's like pretty much it.
Yeah, no. So it's a pinky color, and I absolutely adore it. It's just, I love it so much. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Dang it. I wish I would have talked about my water bottle now because, straw water bottles, like, the reason why you got yours was because you loved mine so much.
Yeah, because it had a straw,
Yeah.
and it was just so convenient.
I've been catching flack for my strawed water bottle for years and years. But let me tell you, when you go strawed water bottle,
There's no going back.
yeah, no, there's absolutely no going back because it'll change in ways you could never imagine. A strawed water bottle is there for you, man.
It's really good. And honestly, now that I have this water bottle, there's a lot less like instances of me spilling water everywhere, and it's amazing. Like, I have not had water on my laptop for like the past 3 weeks. It is wonderful.
All right, and this is going to be another long episode from us, but it's been good chatting with you. Sorry about my clinking with my water bottle. Speaking of that, the water bottles, it got me thirsty, so I needed some H2O. But that's it for this week. See you next week.
See you next week.